Hi guys. I'm Sophie. Welcome to my podcast. This is so funny because I assume sort of anyone that's listening to this knows me really well, but I kind of got to do this assuming maybe some of you out there don't. So, I'm going to introduce myself just like the tiniest bit, which is like I'm Sophie. I don't even know how to describe myself anymore. If I'm being perfectly honest, I'm in one of those moments where I'm like, how do I say what I do? I mean, I'm a certified coach. That is something I do. It is how I make money. I have started writing more. I spend a lot of my time writing. I'm doing this podcast. I spent a decade working in philanthropy and politics. I don't do that anymore, but it was a really formative and important time in my life. I've experienced a lot of loss, a lot of grief, a lot of death, especially in the last 5 years. And that's been a huge catalyst to my growth. And so this idea of like feeling behind, but also growing towards something for me is really like born out of having experienced a lot of things end. I just think it's important to name that piece of my life. I don't ever quite know how to talk about it without it sounding like, oh, I've been through so much, but that's not it at all. But I do think this experience of like I can't really talk about why or how I can sit here and have conversations with people about growing or feel hopeful or feel excited and want to see people like do fucking courageous shit without naming that like this isn't some theoretical pursuit for me. So all that is to say that's who I am, and I think this is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. And if I'm being really honest, I think I wanted to do it for a really, really long time where I had some idea or inkling or like secret little whisper about it, but thought either like I have a whole career, like it's too late for me to start something like a podcast, or more honestly was like, who needs to start another podcast? Like I've missed that boat. I think I used that idea that it's too late to keep me from doing something that maybe would also require me to be vulnerable, that would require me to try publicly. And I think I used the story of like, it's too late to not have to like really say out loud what I wanted. So, all that is to say, I'm really excited to get to talk to people about all sorts of different things, to get to talk to them about being in transition, having been in transition, where they feel behind, what they're growing into. This first conversation that I'm having, one of the reasons I was so excited for us to have it and why I wanted to kick it off as the first episode is because Katie is someone who in my head was very early to a lot of the things that I feel late to. Like doing this, like having a podcast. This is not a podcast about having a podcast, but it is a podcast about growing. And so some of these first episodes really feel like I end up talking about that because this is what is happening in my life right now where I am practicing and coming up against some growth edges. So all that is to say, I wanted to sort of set the tone from the beginning of doing this that like the timeline is just so irrelevant and means nothing. So Katie was early, I feel late, and here we both are sitting on the couch, like in transition and growing. I really want to dismantle this notion that even the concept that we are anywhere other than exactly where we're meant to be is bullshit. That is the thing I want to say. Welcome to a podcast about feeling behind. Moral of the story is you're exactly where you're meant to be. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. None of this could happen a moment sooner or a moment later. So that's why I'm really excited for us to have this episode. And I also just want to say before I turn it over is I one of the things that really was a barrier to entry for me and often is in starting something is like, is it good enough? I will not start something because I treat it with such preciousness, and I've been such a perfectionist at so many times in my life. I really feel like, I identify as a recovering perfectionist of like, what does a big launch look like? Or how do I have the best audio or the best cameras? And I learn, it helps me so much when I see other people do things imperfectly. And like I said, and try. And I think, yes, I'm sharing my personal experience, but I also the more I talk to other human beings and get to hear other people's stories, like doing this, but also just in my life, because that's something I do a lot. I really like, there is a real premise to this of like doing it imperfectly. So, it's going to be good. Hopefully it gets better. I put a lot of time and care into it. And also I'm really okay with it being well, that is such a lie. I'm working on being okay with it being imperfect. So like we're in my living room. This stuff's shot on an iPhone. I asked some cool people that I think, that I get a lot out of like conversations with to come on and talk. So hopefully it will, provide you with something as well. And I'm really going to try to let this be something that gets better and doesn't have to be perfect and just gets to exist and be what it's meant to be. And, um, oh, I find such relief when I see that in other people. So I hope that that provides relief to someone somewhere. I want to just also say I'm really grateful you're listening. I don't take it lightly. It's hard for me not to sit in my head and feel, is this worthy of someone's time to listen to? Because I think our time is precious and where we choose to spend it matters. And I don't take it for granted that um, this might be somewhere you are choosing to spend your time. And so what that means for me is I, in earnest, really want to make it a valuable and beautiful and hopefully sometimes funny experience for you. And yeah, all that said, welcome. Welcome to Late to the Party. Welcome to my first little intro ramble. And without further ado, here's me and Katie. Bye. Hey, dude.
Hi.
I'm so happy we're getting to gab.
Me too.
I feel
I'm
like you're a
stoked.
pro at this, though.
No, I'm just learning. I think it's always changing too.
Is it weird for you to sit on that side of it? Do you feel more comfortable being the
That's
person
a good
talking to
question.
someone or the person like being talked to?
Well, this is more comfortable for me because I don't have to. I asked you too, and you said I didn't have to prepare anything, so I
Yeah.
could just show up here.
Totally.
And I knew that you're gonna take care of the audio visual. So like I don't have to worry about the tech.
Yep.
I don't have to worry about the research and the prep and my notes. And so this is much more comfortable for me.
Yeah.
Just because even though I've done it a bunch, I've interviewed a bunch, and honestly lately I've been feeling this way. Like if I don't do it for a while, I get a bit grumpy, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah, like it's because I think I've done it for so long, I really enjoy it, and it's kind of how for better or worse, it's been a part of all of my 20s and my 30s so far of like researching and doing like a practice, I guess. But it does take like a lot of, there's so much, as you know now,
Yeah.
like there's so much to think about. Like I try to make it seem like I don't prep and I'm just there and I try to throw it away when I get there, but I try really hard and I prep a lot for them. And I was just thinking, I just put a new episode out today, the day we're recording this, and I pressed publish on it, but I'm after it took so long to like research, record, or do, and I'm like, I can't even be bothered to do the I guess marketing part of it. It's just like putting it on stories.
Yeah, you're like,
I'm
it's finally out. I'm so over it.
Yeah.
And because you launched your podcast, Let It Out. You launched in 2013. Like, so your OG podcast, beginning of it all. What's it like to have like, now you have me calling you, being like, how do you start a podcast? But what is that like for you?
It was interesting actually with you reaching out to me, the timing of that, because it was around the time where, at least for me, I had kind of first realized like, oh, it's like all on video now. Hi. Like it's, it didn't used to be that way when I started, which is why I think I have like 500 episodes and it came out every week while I was working full time and doing, everything. I never missed a week. And I've really been thinking about it differently now because like you said, 2013 is, I've never been early to anything in my life except podcasting. I was 3 weeks late, like out of my mom. So, it's not, it's shocking that I started this when I did, but the truth is that gave me, I was a big fish in a small pond, like there
Yeah.
was nobody really knew what podcasting was back then. I had an advantage and a leg up and a privilege for that I didn't even really realize, of being, it pays to be early sometimes. And I've never experienced that since, but I think too it gave it. I'm grateful it happened because it gave me some momentum,
Yeah.
and it allowed me to keep going and keep trying. But it's interesting currently because that, yeah, like you said, that was 2013. Back then, I would say I had a podcast, and it really gave me a leg up to. I used to say podcasting is the new networking, back then, because, I was 22 years old. I lived in Michigan. I didn't know anything about anything. I still don't, but the podcast has taught me a lot,
Yeah.
certainly, and it connected me to a lot of people. And I was able to, like, really humbly reach out to, it felt like the world was my oyster, really, because it felt like from
Mm.
my little computer in Michigan, I could email anybody I admired. And at the time, it was a pretty niche group of people. And it was like this was early wellness too, but it happened to be like early wellness and self help kind of people in New York, it seemed like. And I would just humbly send them an email if I read their book or I, saw something of theirs. And I would kind of know what to say. And I it was a low ask back then, it
Hmm.
was an hour of their time, and they didn't have to be on video, they didn't have to. And after, very early on, I had an archive. Like, I had a not a robust archive, but I had a body of work, so I was able to, like, send a link and be like, "Your 3 friends were on, could you come on? No
Yeah.
rush," and so, and the other big privilege thing I had is I was supporting myself from, I never dreamed of the podcast making money. That eventually happened, but it was not even, like, in the realm of possibility. I didn't even know that it was possible. I studied broadcast journalism, and I wanted to be a TV news reporter, and we had to study radio as, like, a prereq.
Yeah.
But I never, like, podcasting didn't exist really, or it did actually, but I didn't know about it. And so it was one of those things where it was like, I just was developing the craft and doing it and using it really as a way to get to talk to these people I loved.
Yeah.
And so it definitely had this energy of, like, mentee, mentor, or, like, little sister, big sister, really, if I'm being honest. And then once I was doing it for a while, as you know, it did get ads, it did grow. I did leave my full-time job, but that was a big privilege because it was also, I didn't have to commute. Like, they let me work from home, so I was really able to, like, do
Yeah.
this. And then after that, like, I started to get a lot of people being like, "How do you start a podcast? How do you start a podcast?" And so I started helping people, and I did consulting. Like, there was another, like, way to be able to leave my full-time job, and then I turned that into a course. It was called Let a Podcast Out. Maybe that's the reason why it didn't work out. But I ran that for, I think, like, 2 years, and it's still online. Like, people, I think I sent it to you, but I'm like, I don't even know if any of this is relevant anymore, because what I was saying, like, by the time you reached out, I was like, oh, it's so interesting, like, having done this one way for so long, I'm in this moment of, like, oh, how I was doing it doesn't isn't the way it's being done right now.
Yeah. It's so interesting too. Like, I mean, I have so many. One, I just want to know, like, what made you want to start a podcast? I
Yeah.
guess I'm so curious, like, when you are early to something, which we'll get more into sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
where we are, why it felt right to have a conversation with you today. But it wasn't like there was the experience, I would imagine, of, wow, I've watched all these people I admire do this thing. I want to do it too. I have a reference for this experience. I want to do it also. Was it just an available output after your, like, broadcast journalism
Oh,
schooling, or was it like you did have people you admired, or how did that come about?
I did, because So in that course that I made, I made all these modules, and one of them was the history of podcasting. And podcasting actually started in I think 2006 or something like that. Whenever the iPod, the first iPod came out, podcasts, that's why they're called that, have existed since then. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I think I must have early on like been aware of what a podcast was, because I would listen to these old lectures of a mentor of mine who she just put them on the podcast app. And so I was going on there for those. And then I was also living somewhere where I think it was because for whatever reason, I was listening to a ton of NPR because we had to in school. And I loved Terry Gross and I loved Fresh Air. And I somehow figured out that you could listen to that on your phone on the podcast app. I didn't have to like sit in my driveway and like finish the episode.
Oh, interesting.
So that was another like entry. So those were like two podcasts I was always on. And I'm an auditory learner. Like I'll like remember song lyrics really easily. I'll remember like something you told me very easily, but if I read it or see it, like it's gone. And I think it was just a good format for learning for me. Like I would just have them. I was living alone. I was working alone. They were my friends, you know? And so soon after that, I added to the repertoire Mark Maron. Like he was huge for me and how I like made I was ripping off him, you know, but also doing a little bit Terry Gross and Pete Holmes was like another really big one for me early on. And I would listen religiously to all of those. And I think I already like had the podcast and it was really wellness focused. I had a blog, and the blog was called The Wellness Wonderland. And I also, especially where I grew up, I'm from Michigan, like we didn't have a Whole Foods, like we didn't have, it's changing so much. Like I go back there now and I'm like, how is this here? And, but I think that's why I was so fascinated by these like people in New York who like went to Juice Press or like what, you know, it was just like so different from my life and also the other things they were doing. And, you know, but the internet really like opened up. I was kind of merging like what I was learning from these podcasters as well as blogging. Like it was a way for me. And I was reaching out to a lot of like people who had an internet presence, but like you'd never heard their voice before. And that was just kind of how it was. Like there was like a lot of people in 2013, 2010, or like you would follow them on Instagram, but you had no idea like what they sounded like, where that's not even really true.
Yeah, because like Instagram was like, here's a photo of my coffee.
With a Rise filter.
And then, man, I remember like maybe it was like 2013, 2014. Yeah. Like I listened to Mark Maron and Terry Gross like every day. Like that was my commute to work. I lived at a 45-minute drive to work every day. And that's
my friends.
What I listened to. And it was the best. But it's like such a different time. And I think, you know, the thing that I find, Katie, so interesting about you and as we've gotten to know each other is like, I hear it's like you were writing about wellness before wellness was everywhere. And you started a podcast before, you know, everyone and their mother. For those not watching the video, I'm like rolling my eyes and pointing at myself. But everyone and their mother had a podcast. Like you really sort of, I look and I go, wow, the parts of myself that is like, feels like I'm either making up for lost time now, or if only I had, you know, done this then, which I don't think is a terminally unique human experience. I think we all sort of look back and go like, I wish I knew now then, or if I could go back in time, I'd do things differently. And in some ways you did so many of the things
it's
that
so
I'm like,
interesting. Yeah.
I wish I had done that then. And also what a cool reminder that like, here we all are, and you're like, and also things, I'm going into new things. So I'm like, what is that like for you to feel like well, first off, I just want to name that and say that out loud to you, that it's so cool to me, everything you've done. You know, you wrote
well, thank you.
I did a bad job of introducing you, but also like you're a published author. You wrote a book about journaling in 2016. And now it's like, I feel like I can see, every fourth TikTok is about a journaling practice. And
Okay, I guess I was early a couple other times.
you were early a lot. You were early
I was early to wellness and I was early to journaling, yeah.
What's it like for you to have just sort of like explored something because you were interested and passionate about it and now watched it become, mainstream for lack of a better term?
Oh man. Well, I gotta say thank you. Someone said to me, and I think I would regurgitate this in the course that I used to teach, because my favorite part of teaching that was about the interviewing, because I'm not perfect at it by any means, but it's my favorite. It's definitely the thing I've done the most, that I've tried at, and I have developed, I think. I think I'm better than when I started.
Oh, you're a great interviewer.
Thank
I've been
you.
listening to your podcast all week.
But that was the part I really enjoyed teaching. I can know my way around the tech kind of. I'm not great technically. I'm not a great editor. I can know my way around a little bit. I know how to outsource that stuff to be better. I'm not a great marketer. I'm not great with the visuals. But so I would teach all of the elements of podcasting in that workshop. But I should have probably only been teaching the interviewing part, because that was the part that I really love. But somebody said to me once that a good interview is should feel like therapy for the guest. And so well done. Because, I think you named
honestly, I'm
something.
taking that and running with it. Yeah.
I think you named something that's really interesting that I haven't thought. I made the joke at the beginning, I was only early to podcasting. I've never been an early adopter. And then as you were going through it, I was like, guess I was quick to that too. And now look at it and that too. And, I was driving over here and you're catching me in an interesting moment of my life, I guess, of, I had this, and this from being my friend. And, I guess from everything that you just said, I had this, and it's hard to talk about a little bit, I don't want to say success, but I was early, right?
Yeah.
I was early to those things. And it's really interesting to hear it from your perspective of I've never thought of it that way of God, if I had just started earlier, if I had just done this earlier, because you're right, I did. And then now look at me, so you didn't,
Yeah.
But it's about evolution and constantly evolving. I think where I'm at right now, and why, when you reached out, it both made me feel so good that I was still relevant enough for you to want to ask me, because I'm I don't know really what works now, because what I'm doing isn't really working, which is okay. And I don't say that in a self-deprecating way. I'm because I'm figuring out what is going to work, and I have more experience, and hopefully, the next, I on a good day, I can believe that if I was able to do that, I'll figure out another thing. I'll land on my feet. And I really do believe that, that when you're having a bad moment, it can be hard. But for the most part, I really try hard to believe that, I guess. But it is interesting. It's I've had a little bit of, I think it's probably a combo of things, but there's probably a little bit of ego there of if I'm really being honest, between you and me and us, I think I did have some, I think in the back of my mind, even when I left my full-time job, and at that time, there were more ads than it was the Wild West of podcasting. It wasn't I was making millions of dollars, but I was able to replace my salary which was an entry-level salary, but I was able to do that, and I still had the salary, So, and then I left because I was and I didn't ever think that was going to continue for sure. I was always measured about it. I saved money while I was working, and I made that course because I wanted to have multiple streams of income, because I knew that was fickle. But I didn't know that it would go away completely. In a matter of, several years. And part of that is, the industry and the way that, which I'm so grateful that, now more people, the cool thing is, when I started, everyone was well, what's a podcast? And then I could kind of get those people on the podcast back then before I had an archive because they'd be like, "Oh, you're on iTunes? Oh my God, like you're on iTunes." But it was really like anybody can. There's no gatekeepers, you know? But at the time, like people just didn't know. So there was this sort of ignorance where now I think the thing that makes me it used to make me really sad, like used to until like an hour ago, but I'm deciding it's like I'm not gonna be sad about it anymore. But I struggled with I don't get that way with wellness or like even the journaling thing. I think I probably had a moment of like, oh man, I really tried to make that happen and it is everywhere now. But those ones I think I can kind of let go. But the chip on my shoulder stayed a little bit for wanting to what podcasting gave me was, and this is like, the ego in this is certainly present. And there's also some grief, there's like a grief to, I worked really hard. And by working really hard on this, I didn't do a lot of other things. And other things suffered. Relationships suffered, like other stress. I didn't develop another craft or, but I also so much great stuff. So many wonderful things came from it. But what it did give me, like the ads were fleeting and that was cool. But the main thing I think I'm grieving from that time in my life is, and the body of work is still there, but I kind of thought that was one thing that like nobody could take away from me. Like if the ads went away tomorrow, if whatever, because the body of work gave me access. Like I felt like I had access to anybody, even when I like had barely any episodes, but like I was saying, like having that, I'm on iTunes, like it kind of, and I think I approached it with such humility of like, I'm this like young kid looking up to you and I don't have that anymore. So I have to now like enter an era of like being a peer with someone I'm interviewing or being like the older person, like trying to learn from someone who knows different things than me. And that's like it's like putting on it's like someone who wears a hat and doesn't usually wear a hat. Like you feel kind of silly in a hat until you wear it a couple times or like having new Converse. Like it's embarrassing and you got to kind of scuff them up a little bit. And I feel like
Trust
that.
Me, I understand.
Yeah. So that part is there's a grief to that. And I think because the access to people, I think now, if I had this thought recently where I was like, before I kind of felt like if I loved a book or I loved anything, I kind of felt like it, and I wouldn't like speak about this constantly, but it was just like private to myself. I was like, I'm one email away from getting to talk to this person. And really what I thought was, I'm one email away from getting to be their friend. Because sometimes that would happen.
Yeah.
Not every time, but it happened like kind of often.
Yeah, you're having like a deep conversation with another human being.
Yeah, and enough times with enough people that I like looked up to and admired and have become my real life close friends that I think I kind of got used to it. And now I'm like, I'm sure, I can reach out to someone and I still have publicists who reach out to me. I must be on these lists still. But I when I thought about it, I was like, if someone sees an email who's an author, a publicist, and from somebody who has a podcast feed, okay, they maybe click on it. People's attention spans are 2 seconds. But if they see like, there's no video for this, like there's no clips, like I don't know, like there's no, it kind of just is like, I don't know, maybe that's not even the case, but it is it's definitely shifting. It's trending that direction.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I mean, there's so many follow-ups I want to ask you, but the first thing is like, it's so interesting what you just said of like, I used to feel like, oh, how cool. Now I'm only like an email away.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's the time or I wonder if that's age, because I've been thinking about it so much starting this where it's almost, and maybe it is because I feel late to the party or because I feel like a beginner again at a phase of life where I feel like I'm not supposed to be a beginner.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm like making this podcast for myself so I can talk to people about this. But I go to the place of, oh my God, like, but I have to get it good enough that they would want to be on, or there's no way, that feels like too much of a reach to imagine this person that I admire would want to come on, or I feel so grateful that you want to take an hour of your, I think there's almost this like not believing in possibility that I wonder if that like comes with age. I've been thinking about that a lot for myself of like, how do I like do the footwork in my own life to believe that things are possible the way 22-year-old Katie was like, oh, I love this book. How cool that I could talk to this author now.
I know. She's insane. Like, who was she? Like, where is she now? Like that
But
person.
Also it was true.
Yeah. And I think that I do believe so much in I'm a lot more grounded now, and I'm a lot more jaded, I guess. But I had this delusion back then that really helped me. And I believe in mindset, and I believe in all of that stuff because it worked for me. I think I had probably too much, and I wasn't aware of my privilege as much as I should have been. And I've learned a lot since. But I think back then I really did. I was like, okay, I can do that. Like, and to be honest, I think the other thing that's like really important about that time that is different since is those years that I was starting this, I was dating someone who like really believed in me.
Yeah.
And he bought me my first microphone. It was like I could just say an idea and he would like figure out the tech part of it, and that like he like built me a website, and like he's the first person I thank in my book. Like he's the first, like he changed everything for me, because I think how I grew up too, and like who was around me, it was very and I'm grateful for this too, and I have a lot more perspective on it now, but it brought me down to earth, I'll just say that, and really kept me down at earth in a way that I was just like trying to leave and trying to and I did all of these sort of backwards ways to differentiate myself from how I grew up and try to like get further away, and now I see it differently, but I had someone who was kind of like, and I still need that now, almost a permission slip, if you will, of like someone telling me, you can do that, you can try that. Even I like, as you know, I bought a car recently, and I was like, I used to have a Prius, and everyone I asked was like, oh, you should just get like another Prius or this practical car. You should get like a used like few years old car. And I was like, yeah, that's right. That's what I should do, of course. And I was kind of looking at those, and there was an older car, and I just was like, that one's so cool. And somebody was like, why don't you drive it? And I just like, I didn't even like let myself think I could get a 35-year-old car until someone was like, you could. Like, I still feel like I need that for so many things in life.
No, I think look, I think it's so important for us to do the work to believe in ourselves and have self-trust, and I also think it's really beautiful and important to have people in our lives that can reflect back to us. Of that thing you want. It makes sense that you would want that thing, or that car is cool, or it would make sense you would want to have a pot. That doesn't feel insane to me, because I do think it's so human nature for us to get trapped in our own stuff, that it's a beautiful thing to get. I think in relationships we're giving each other permission
completely
to be more ourselves, to like, I love when I'm around people who are so honest, because then I'm like, I get to be that honest. Or when they're like so silly, I'm like, I get to be that silly. Or when they're kind of unabashedly go after the shit they want in the world, I'm like, I get to pursue my dreams. Like it does. I want to surround myself with people who give me more permission to be myself and like reflect back to me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have a really great perspective on that, because I think some people would feel like, they're doing it, I can't, or there's not, like, you have an abundance mindset around it, which is really great.
Yeah, I think, it's so interesting. There's something I've been thinking about a lot, which listening to you talk, like earlier you were like, I don't want to say I was successful. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to say that? Like you're really successful. There's actual like some data markers. Like you had a even successful podcast that's been around for over a decade and you lived on the revenue of, and you have a published book that exists in the world. Like there's evidence. It's actually not like being in reality to say that you like haven't had success. And I have been thinking about that so much in my own life of like, yes, we can say like there's the fantasy of being Delulu for sure, which I actually like. I need to just like be more delusional in my life about a lot of things. Like I'm inclined in the direction of being like too realistic and too rational and to your point, like, kind of brought back down to earth.
Yeah.
But it's as much a fantasy to think we're like superior as it is to be like overly inferior.
Yeah.
Like that's also a fantasy. Like to say we don't have the success we had or that we aren't good at the things we're good at is as much to some degree being delusional.
Yeah.
As like going too far in the other direction.
Yeah. Okay. Now you're doing it again. It is like therapy. Cause I think what I'm realizing is like, that's not a bit, but it's like a character I'm playing almost because, when I was growing up, the worst thing that you could be ever was a braggart, and my one of my best friends is Australian and maybe this is something that everybody knows, but I learned it from her, but their big thing is tall poppy syndrome. Do you know?
Yes. My friend who's Australian taught me about it.
Yeah. Which is basically the same thing. Like, not wanting to ever like to be humble, I guess.
Tall poppy syndrome is the idea that like you can't be the poppy that is acting taller than everyone else, essentially. Right?
Yeah. And I think I've always wanted to. I think too, because maybe this is why I really went so hard and like dimming it a little bit, is because when I did have that, first of all. I really thought it was just getting started, and I didn't see it coming that it was gonna like plummet like it did. And when I'm kind of being facetious when I say that too, like I moved to a different side of the country. I navigated some things in my life, and I'm like really grateful for everything I have now. But it certainly wasn't the direction with my work that I thought that things were going in.
Yeah,
and I'm really like now. Restarting a lot of things and wanting to actually like, as I'm figuring out what's next, like going back to a lot of what I was doing back then, but like needing to completely change how I'm doing it and what exactly I'm doing to update it to what's happening now, but also because I'm different. But all of that to say, like, I think half the reason I'm like speaking about it like that is because back then when I was having some of those successes, how do I say this? Like in a lot of ways, I feel like I missed my 20s. Like I wasn't doing in my 20s what I wasn't cool. Like I didn't. First of all, I was very into wellness. So I was like going to bed. I had like a wake up light and I was teaching yoga at like 5 a.m. And so I was like going to bed at 9 p.m. And like I didn't experiment with anything. And I was just very like militant and overly disciplined in a way that was bad for me. And so that didn't help the not having fun in my 20s. But I also was working a full-time job and trying to turn this into a job. And then I got this book deal. And so I was writing a book, editing a book, going on a book tour, like doing all of that while I was working this full-time job where I like sort of had to hide it. Like I had to hide that they were aware. My boss was wonderful and great and she knew everything, but kind of to the higher ups, I needed to make sure that they knew I was also getting my work done and like doing a good job.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to play up the like, I remember like everyone's doing that 2016 thing now. And I like saw the date my book came out that year. And I did 2 like morning TV shows. And then I remember I was like on a meeting like 2 seconds after and like just had to, nobody knew that I had a book come out. And I didn't even take the day off for that because I wanted to take it off for like days I had to travel. So I think that maybe so often me like being like, yeah, I have this little book. It's no big deal. And also too, it was like, it was self-help. I was like big in the self-help world at a time where like, and even now it still is kind of, but I think it's different. It's certainly different in LA now. And I published a little, or I publish is silly, but I made a printout for my friends basically. I forgot to bring you one, but like a year ago when I broke my leg, I made a zine of all these old columns I had written and some like essays I had written at a certain time in my life. And when I was going through those, I realized like how I felt so embarrassed that I was like into self-help and I was kind of trying to be cool. And like when I moved here, like recently, like 5 years ago. And now I'm like, now the gag of it all is that like, I think my friends would be kind of into it. Like,
no, I'm like so into it. It's so funny when you say like, I feel like I missed my 20s, because I feel like I could say the same thing. I don't know
everyone
if other
feels
maybe
that way.
maybe we just like all feel like we missed our, because mine is in the other direction. We're like, and also I don't, right? Like I had a really fucking cool career. It's just not what I want to be doing now. But yeah, my 2016, I was like at galas and traveling all over and working everywhere and was like in a relationship, but also my life feels like, I think it looked and sounded really cool. Right.
That's so true.
And I built a life that like looked and sounded really cool. But I look at like those photos and I'm like, oh, I feel really far away from myself. I feel like a much smaller version of myself. I think I wish I had been pursuing all the things that I want to pursue now then, which is so ironic because again, like I hear you and you're like, I was doing all these things that to me would be on the bucket list if I could go back in time. And yet here we still are both feeling like we missed our 20s. Like I think that might just be some elusive thing.
Yeah.
Like I remember one time
I hope we don't feel like we missed our 30s.
No,
and our 40s.
I don't think I really actually, I mean, I think like the pandemic aside, where I think we all feel like we kind of lost some years. At least I do, of like, oh yeah, I went from being like 30 to in my late 30s all overnight, and I'm like, oh right, because a couple of those years were spent inside. But I was in a parking lot with a friend having a moment where I was like really feeling low, maybe like 6 or 8 months ago. And I started crying to her and I was like, oh, I just wish I had, no, whatever the thing was, like wanted a podcast or like wanted to write like when I was 22. And she's like, I don't know, man, you'd probably be in this parking lot crying to me right now.
It's
like,
so true.
I do think there's an element
I did
of
all
like,
that and look at me crying to you.
It's just such a good reminder that like there's no there and there's no elusive thing we could have gotten or attained that would make us feel whole. And we all, I don't know, I could go on like a more like spiritual diatribe about that, but
and I'm with you there too. It's like the God-sized hole, or we're all trying to fill these like unfillable holes, whether it's with relationships, with eating, not eating, drugs, food, like people, work, and I think I fill it with all of them, like I'm very, I'm stuffing anything I can in there. And I've just sort of become aware of that. And I think I've overcorrected too with the work part of it. Like that I guess I sort of, glossed over this, but I think I was like addicted to work, know, and I'm not really anymore because it's not really the work I'm doing is like not really working, but also because or I don't know, because I've like replaced it with other addictions for sure. But at that time it was like a way to avoid things, avoid intimacy, avoid other addictions. It was, and I think the work addiction one is interesting because it's like outside, like you're like applauded for doing good at your addiction, basically doing well at your addiction.
Oh yeah, you get so much positive reinforcement for like, output and all the things that look shiny and bright and look, we could go back and forth, we can agree to disagree on your success and all the things I think are so cool about everything you've
Thank
done
you.
that like I personally really admire. I remember
Thank you. No, it
meeting you
like
being
means so much.
I'm like, she's so cool.
Oh my, that's how I felt about you. I still feel that way about you.
So how fun that we get to be friends with people who we think are
Yeah,
cool.
thank you to Stella.
Yeah,
Stella's
thanks. Shout
dinner
out
party.
Stella for
Yeah.
hosting it. Yeah, can everyone just have more dinner party? Like we need to bring back the dinner party.
Yeah.
We need to bring back the house party.
I think I was in a cast.
You were in a cast,
yeah,
and
you had been recently out of a cast.
I was recently out of an arm cast, and you were recently in an ankle cast, and we bonded over that. Speaking of feeling late, it was my first broken bone.
Same.
Yeah, we were late to that party. Thank God. Okay, so all that is to say,
better when you're young on that one.
We've sort of alluded to like you're like, I had all this success, and you keep making these sort of self, and look at me now. But walk me through a little bit more, like, like what does life look like right now? You had all this success, you were in this moment, you came early to all these things in your 20s, and I mean, what I'm gathering from what you're sharing with me is that at least for you in this moment, it doesn't feel like you're like, the podcast isn't like thriving, or I'm not in a moment of feeling like a shit ton of abundance in the way I would like. But maybe am I reading into that correctly?
No, you're spot on. Gosh, where should I begin? I mean, and feel free to reel me in, but it's so funny. No. So this, I'm going to start in an insane place, but let's go with it.
I'm so into it.
What else am I going to do with this question? Well, last night I was like sitting by myself and like eating dinner, and I was like, I think I'm going to post on my story like a question box, or just like question, and just say, what do you think I should do? Like, what do you think I should do next? Like, and I think I know, like I've got a bunch of ideas. Like ideas have never been a issue. It's the executing and the time and the confidence or the delusion. Because I think going back to like what we were saying before too, it's like, yes, I was dating someone back then who really believed, like that was rocket fuel. That was certainly helpful. Now I'm surrounded by like great friendship, doing great. All the other areas we could maybe say needs improvement, but that one I've really, one thing I did, I think perhaps overcorrected when I was so, I'm saying addicted to work, but I was so focused, I guess, on, I was so focused on two things. I was so focused on leaving my full-time job and being able to support myself with my work, whatever that may, like, and I worked really hard to do, and I invested a lot of money into it. So there's like some sunk cost fallacy, I think, there. And I invested even more time into it. And in the process of doing that, I made that my, it wasn't just that, but I hurt a lot of relationships, and I didn't prioritize relationships at all. And I think I used it to avoid the intimacy and the, because relationships are mirrors. And I think I didn't want to look at a lot of stuff that I needed to look at in myself, and other things I was doing to fill the gaping hole inside of me, and I think I just would turn, I'd be like so busy, and was also had like an influx of momentum, I think, in the work, but I couldn't sustain it. Like I was trying to I had a whole team. I was trying to make a magazine. I invested I came into some money from my full-time job. Like I had stock options. So it was like more money than I could like ever conceive of in my life. And like I'm from Michigan, like and so I invested all of it into making a magazine. and at the time I did that, like there were a bunch of online magazines, and then at the time I'm so slow to, sort of get that off the ground. And like Lenny was closing, Rookie was closing, all of these ones that I was sort of looking to. And I was like, oh wait, I like can't sustain. What am I doing? Like I actually kept if they can't do it, like I like didn't really understand, and I got into and then I just was so that I think that had like started, and then the relationship ended, and I just was like a sort of a shell, and and I guess, God, all right, you really are the therapy. I haven't like talked about any of this stuff, even with like some of my closest friends. Now I'm really like forgot you were there.
I'm honored.
We're really going for it, but yeah, I also like super relapsed in. I was like had to go to treatment again for eating disorder stuff, which I had already done. Which I know now is like it's never really done for me, but some people I believe it can be, but that's it certainly isn't the case here. So my addictions were like through the roof. The relationship, that was a really wonderful, like great. I wasn't able to be great in that.
Yeah.
And that makes me really sad. It like
Yeah.
still is really sad for me.
Yeah.
But I think I overcorrected after that. And it was right before this was all right the year before the pandemic. So I think I couldn't sustain the like, oh my God, I'm starting this new project. I have this whole team, but I'm like not being a good, not handle, like could do anything, but I was like trying to do treatment, and I wasn't responding to emails, and I was like focusing on the wrong things. And I was just like really, I have this incredible friend, Sasha, in New York, and I was just sort of following her around. Like I would like go to her yoga classes that she would go to, and I would just like, she talks about this time, and I would just like lay on my mat and like not do yoga, but just to like not be alone. And then I would like just sit with her while she worked. And I just was I was kind of like this, like I was just so, walking like a ghost, like walking around New York. And then, I perked myself up. I traveled a lot that year, and traveled so much so that I, took my stuff out of the place I was living, put it into my best friend's place, and then went on this trip that I say like was my eat, pray, love that never ended, because I was in Australia when COVID started, and then I came to LA and just stayed here and shipped my stuff. But I really was trying to look at everything that was happening. I was very determined to learn everything I could from that relationship, like mine it for all these gems, and never do that again, never have those same issues happen again. And turns out that's not really how it works. Like wherever you go, there you are. And what was sort of maddening was I was trying to learn as much as I could, and that's true, but it's things come up in like different places and with different people, and I feel like that was a late to the party thing, where I took a very long time to learn those lessons it was too late in that relationship. Like I took too long to learn them, and that's what happened. And I was so sad about that it was almost hard for me to like learn them and actually like do the things I needed to do. And I think I went traveling to like, I was like, all right, well, work isn't working to avoid my issues, and so I'll travel to avoid my issues. And then it's like, well, it's a pandemic now, so now you're grounded.
I'm gonna sit there.
Yeah, but you know what? I found a way to distract myself there too. So here we are 5 years later, where I'm finally like, all right, it's time.
So, it's so interesting. When I listen to your podcast, when I hear you share right now, when I read your writing, which Katie also has an incredible Substack that everyone should read. I'm just so moved by your like honesty and vulnerability. And I think it is something that I think is why when you have been at times in your life where you're really committed to creating things and putting them out, it's worked so much. Because I do really just hear, it's like when I listen to you talk, it helps me be like, oh yeah, I really know what that feels like to want to mine something for all that, to be like, okay, well, I'm in pain, so I better make this pain as productive as possible so that I can protect myself from ever having to feel this pain again. Versus at least, and this is, it's getting to a question, but my experience with grief or with pain has been like, it's 1000% a roadmap, right? Like it is like, okay, I feel grief that I couldn't show up in these ways.
Yeah.
Or I feel grief for this time lost, or I feel whatever the thing is I'm grieving. How can that help guide me toward the next thing I want to do? How I can do work to show up differently over here, or to, do the thing I didn't do 10 years ago that I wished I had, whatever that might be. But if I try to do it to fix something within myself, if I try to do it to like solve, like if I'm doing it from the idea that like there's some problem that needs to be fixed, or there's some broken part of me that needs to be made whole, or I am somehow going to like, fill that hole we've been talking about, or become a better version of myself, or like, then I'll be okay. It never works. It just has to be like, oh, I learned so much so that now I get to go have a different kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if that resonates for you or not, but I'm so curious for you, like having had this experience of sort of feeling like things fell apart a little bit is what I hear. I mean, like, oh, I really want to understand what happened, and you're so willing to work on yourself, and like, what is the different experience you want to have now?
Ooh, such a good question. I think, well, I want to say to you too, and earlier when you asked about how I started the podcast and why I kept doing it, and I'll say this to you now, I think I'm feeling, and you were so kind to say that, like I'm open, and they don't call me let it out for nothing. I'm really exposed here, but it's because you not only are like asking good questions, which you are, but you are making me feel comfortable. And when I started, someone said that to me, like the first person I interviewed emailed me after, and she was like, she was like a very intense person, and she was like, you are not to stop doing that, because I'm very, and I will say this to you too, you're very good at reading people and making them feel comfortable, because I think at the end of the day, like everyone wants to feel seen and accepted as they are, and I think so much of addiction and wanting to turn to, like, I don't even have to call it addiction, but like wanting to turn to something to not feel something, which I am like super that I have no problem with being the tall poppy on. Like I'm so good at that. It's crazy. I will avoid all day. I'll talk in and that was like a big thing in my relationship. Like I would talk in circles around something and over apologize to not actually look at it and change. I just wanted to go back to things being good before like walking through the hard thing. And I wanted, and that's really indicative of even this moment I'm in work-wise. It's like for so long I was saying like, oh, I want what I want my career to be is like what my career was in 2016. And that isn't, that's no good, like I want to want more, and I want to be able to like conceptualize something different, and it's just another way of avoidance, truly. And so I think it's really like, but I really do think that this desire to want to turn to something, to want to tune out, I see it in myself, and I can see it even in like the last week where I had a stretch of like 3 days where I'm sure you've experienced this too, and this is like maybe a bit like out there, but I just felt really supported and like really like loved by my friends, and just like I don't know. I did, and it wasn't anything like super out of the ordinary, but I was not like spiraling if anybody was mad at me, or I was just like in a solid place, and everything else was like I wasn't turning to things to tune out. I'll say that. And so I think the opposite, and I've heard someone else, this is not my original thought, but I really will take it as my own thought because I believe it is the opposite of addiction is connection. And when we feel disconnected, when we feel you're giving me the space to like feel like I can be honest and like be open, and that's a really big gift. And I think it's more rare than, we're all so isolated now. And I was listening to this New Yorker festival video, and it was tremendous. I mean, I loved it so much, but it was a panel of all the people who write the New Yorker profiles, and I'm addicted to the profile, like the
Yeah.
long, when they used to like spend weeks with someone and having that access to a
It's
person. Like
magical.
I've always been like, I love them so much. It was so cool to hear all of these different writers talk about their process with it, and how, like, one question was like, do they feign, like, if they've researched, do they like pretend to be ignorant about their childhood when they ask, or how, so inside baseball. I loved hearing it. And one of them talked about going to Italy to interview this, she was nearly 100, I think, this artist, this painter. And the second she walked through the door, the artist was like, I love you already. And they just really hit it off, and she loved her. And what the artist appreciated so much about the journalist was how she was able to give at that point in her life, nearing 100. There wasn't so much coming up, so to have someone, I like emotional now, look at everything that she's done and see a clear picture, and tell her story, and
Yeah.
see her, like, it gave her that connection. It gave her that feeling of being seen by someone else. And I feel like you've given me that boost right now today, of like having seen what I've done, because, as you know, like, a lot of our friends here, and people I just meet now, I have no idea. And it's not really not that they need to have any idea. It wasn't like, and it's not really like I'm hiding it, but it's just, I'm between like no longer and not yet, and I have, like I
Yeah.
said, I have all these ideas. And, but I think to be at my, I'm kind of, now I'm avoiding your question, speaking of
It's
avoiding,
okay.
but with whatever's next, I think I have to alchemize everything that's happened before, and grieve some of it, and grieve
Yeah.
that, like, it's not going to be what I thought it was going to be. And I don't actually know. What was your question again? Like,
I
what the
think
future is?
no, I think I was asking a little bit of like,
Sorry.
based off what you've learned from
Yeah.
everything you've mined, where like what is the experience you want to have? But actually, I think you did answer it, and I think
I think it's, I don't know.
yeah, and I guess what I'm curious about too, and this is a bit of a leading question only because we've talked about it a little bit, but you were saying like there's a lot I have to grieve. We've been talking a lot about the podcast and how you're thinking about like,
Yeah.
is that something I want to continue? Is that something I want to end? If I do, how do I want to do it in a way that feels like I'm honoring all that it's been, but also what does it look like to not be overly precious about things? Like,
Yeah.
I know you're starting, and literally could not be more excited to go to a live podcast on Thursday. Well,
Aw.
it'll already have happened, but Katie's starting a new podcast about rom-coms, which is my favorite hobby. So, like, I know there's just a lot of different things right now
Yeah.
of like what's ramping up, what's ramping down. How are you? What does that look like? What are you thinking about? Like, what does it mean for you to potentially let go of things you've spent a lot of
Yeah.
your life building? And if you don't want to talk about that, we
Oh,
don't
no,
have
no,
to,
no. I would love to. All of last year, I was really, and it was quite frustrating, actually, and a bit, because I was my old boss, actually, at the job the one job that I've had, really, she would always say, don't talk about it, be about it. And last year I felt like I was talking about things much more than I was doing them, planning, and honestly, I was looking back a lot, which I know I was just saying we were doing here, which today it's felt good. And you've been so kind to like acknowledge what I've done as I'm like trying to figure out what's next. But the way I was doing it last year was a lot of like, I had a friend who was helping me, who was the greatest, and she was like talking it out with me, like, and she, much like she's so incredible, and so like I can't like I much like the person that I that was around when I started the podcast, she's given me that same like belief in myself to be able to, it's my friend Lily, hi, and to like, I believe that I might not believe it, but I believe that she believes it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is so helpful and came at a time where I felt like I really, and I think to go back to the delusion part of youth, there is a delusion to youth just in the sense of like, you feel like you have a lot of time, which I think is also just helpful. And you have and I think that there's a momentum and an energy that comes with it too. And I certainly had a ambition that I can't seem to muster now, as in the same way. But also, I didn't have it's harder to keep reaching out and asking for something when you get a bunch of no's. It's a lot easier when you haven't gotten any
100%,
responses,
100%.
So I think I was kind of in a place of like realizing my age because it, like you said, the pandemic happened and I was, I kept making this joke at the beginning of the pandemic where I was like, oh, okay. Like I was doing so bad that like everyone just like met me where I was. Like it was such a weird year that I was like, cool. Like honestly, this is, and then, I think it coincided with me moving to a new city and like completely starting over again.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. Like it was really distracting. And I think I overcompensated. I don't know if I finished this thought earlier, but I was like so determined to not overwork. And so I think when I moved here, I was like, I went in the other direction. I was just like, I am here for friends. Like, and it was the pandemic. So it kind of, and LA is so different from New York where it was like, nobody really works here anyway. And I just was like hanging out. and I also just didn't really know what to do with let it out. I was like, I was trying to make this magazine. That didn't really work. I was making these courses. And I tried a bunch of stuff. It wasn't like I wasn't just hanging out. I was like hanging out mostly. And then I was doing stuff on my computer. And I did, I guess this is something else I like rarely have spoken about, but I was also coaching people and working with people one-on-one, which I'm really good at and I love doing. And I still have it, this creative clinic, and I would help people like take an idea, take a project, because essentially I started doing it, as you know, with podcasting, and I was helping people start their podcast. But I realized like what I was really doing with that most often was it was mostly people coming to me to talk out like their idea and their fear of like, can I do this thing I want to do? And I was a permission slip essentially. And they were talking out to me like, what is my friend from middle school going to think when they see the Instagram for the account? You know what I mean? It was like that. And I was really good at consulting with people on that because that was something that, I was able to be, and I still do this with people and I really enjoy it. It's like, we're on a hike and I'm not super far ahead of them. I'm right by them, but I just tripped on that rock. And so I can be like, oh, don't trip on that rock because I just did,
Yeah.
So it was really, it was great. And then I made that a group called Creative Underdogs, and we worked on stuff together. And I made unsurprisingly, I made a workshop about breakups, and I made a zine about breakups, and I made all these, I called them kits, but I had one about journaling, writing, which was sort of an update to my book. But where I really like got stunted and stopped, which I think will like lead me to where I am with it now, is that like the marketing machine of it was too much for me. Like I knew how to make it work, at least back then. And it was relentless. It was like me on camera, on like consistency with the podcast, consistency with all these things, being like, essentially like, please buy my thing. Like I'm going to give you all this free value and then pay for this course that I made. And I just couldn't continue to do that. I try to, and honestly, to say continue is reaching. Like I barely could do it then. I wasn't good marketing it and like selling myself. And it was at a time where I was like, I just don't feel, there are so many things happening in the world that are way more important than this. And my voice, and I just got really quiet and no one was buying it or doing it anymore. And I didn't know, uh, and so I just like didn't do it. And I kind of had this like realization a few, and this is now bringing us up to the close present, but I was thinking about it as like, wow, my work not working, or am I not really working? Like, and it's probably a little bit of both. And I know that I could have probably done many different things to grow it, but I just didn't want to. And I think what I'm realizing now is like, whatever I do next, and I have these ideas, I have to take that into consideration. Unfortunately, that's like, am I going to be able to do the marketing required to do it?
Yeah. Well, and like it's so interesting. I mean, we live in this world now where like to be a creator of any kind, you also have to be a marketer, right? And it's so insane. And it feels it's hard work. It feels vulnerable already to create something, and then it feels even more vulnerable to be like
Yes. That's
be
what it
in
is.
self-promotion, and it
Yeah.
feels cringy, and it feels like all these things we want to avoid. Well,
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself. Like I want to avoid feeling.
Yeah, it goes back to our tall poppy, our aversion to doing that. That's what marketing is. You know,
Yeah.
it's like bragging about yourself. It's being tall poppy.
And it's also this thing, you keep talking about it. And I was saying this to a friend recently, like, yeah, like in high school, I would audition for a play. I'd get whatever part I got. I'd go to rehearsal, work hard, learn the lines. It never occurred to me that the performance wouldn't happen. Like there was like at some point, this thing is inevitably going to take place. So we're just going to work as hard as we can, and it'll be as good as it's going to be by the time we go on stage.
Yeah.
And then like I think over the course of life, like some wire got crossed and broken where I was like, I don't necessarily believe the performance is going to happen. Like I'm going to rehearsal being like, are we doing a good enough job that the performance could maybe take place?
Yeah.
And I it's a very specific metaphor for a theater kid,
it's
but
good.
like
I'm
I really
in.
understand what you're saying of like that. Like when you get so many no's, it becomes hard to make a yes, or the
Yeah.
defeatist energy of like I put so much into, I don't get as much back. And then also, where is the diligence of like you just do it enough times until it just becomes the next thing you have to do for the day. Like I sit down, I ask someone to come on, I sit down, we press record, we have the conversation. At some point I'll get the clip, I'll hit post. Like I ask the question almost from a place of like we're recording this pre me launching something that I feel excited and nervous to launch, and also is going to require self-promotion, which I don't want to do. And I also relate to the thing of like I think I was like such a work person, and then really over-indexed into like taking care of myself and making a life that wasn't about all that external output. And being like, I don't know if I'm gonna have the work ethic again. And it's like, no, I'm really eager. I'm really stoked.
Yeah.
It's not that. Like if I'm avoiding doing something, it's because there's something else there. It's not a work ethic issue.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you is, as someone who like has to go do some self-promotion, and you have done it in the past, when it has worked, when you have been able to do it more, what has allowed you to do it?
Oh, well, I mean, I love your school play. I guess I would modify it a little bit, or the way I look at that is you go to rehearsal. I didn't really feel like it was my job to do the marketing of the play. Like maybe I hung a poster or something,
Right.
but I knew it was going to happen and that people were going to be there no matter what. Where now it's kind of like I'm rehearsing for something and it's probably going to happen. Like I know I'll put out an episode, but the seats will be empty, or there's like 2 people there where it used to be full,
Yeah.
And I think that but the funny thing about it is like I had no problem, and this is, granted, this is over a decade ago, and it has a lot of the things we spoke about earlier. But it was embarrassing then too to promote yourself, but I didn't really care. But what's funny is I had no one listening. Like at the beginning, like there was literally 0 people.
Yeah.
Now there might be like 4 or whatever. No, there's maybe more than that. But like
there's more than 4 people
but
listening to
it's
your podcast.
different than it. It's no. If I could do it then, I can do it now. You know what I mean? It's like it is a It's just and also just everything's different now. Like people's attention spans are 2 seconds.
Yeah,
and I think I said this to you when we first spoke about your podcast. Like it's night and day you starting it now to when I did, because of not even the video thing or not even technology, but just the way that the internet is. And so what I did to promote Let It Out back then might not even be possible now, wouldn't work now. Like, and granted, like some of that early momentum was like we spoke about being an early adopter, but even more recently, like anything that I put out that I have promoted, it's like, and I think this is a very, I feel like it's so boring to talk generationally, but I do think that this is a difference between our millennial generation and other ones, is this this kind of like humility. Like it feels embarrassing to post anything to me now, and it feels and I do feel like it was like a self-correcting thing, because back then I was like, I'm a self-help book author and a motivational speaker, and I was like 22, and I was like, I'm a life coach, and I was like, I'm super into wellness. Welcome to the Wellness Wonderland Radio. I would like, that was me, and now I'm like, oh my God, and I think it's because I was trying to be cool, and like trying to be cool is like shooting myself in the foot. And it really like amped up actually when I moved here, because I was like, had crushes on all these cool people and was around all these cool people who were artists and whatever. And I was just like, oh my God, they cannot know about these kits. And like this, like I need to make my Instagram like different immediately, because I like cannot be a business. Like that's so embarrassing. And then it was like, oh, well now you like have to get a different job because you didn't do your business, So I'm coming full circle to that reality, because I think you just have to like, as Lacey Phillips says, what you don't own owns you, like you have to just like be like, all right, well, I'm doing this thing. I started. And I think that's like, someone early on said to me, like, when you're authentic, people fall in love with you, like it's just very alluring, people doing what is true. And I think people can see through a lot more bullshit than we think that they can. Like we think that
100%.
Yeah. And so I think I just, when I heard that one time and I just believed it. And I very much have always tried to, and I think that's what you were saying, you pick up in me. It's just, I'm kind of like, this is all I got. Like no matter, even because when I try to pretend any other way, like I just get found out. So I'm just kind of like, and for me, I think what's I don't even want to say challenging, but like, it's an energy management thing, I think, because like I was saying, like I will write a Substack and it will be like a harrowing experience for me. Like my legs are asleep. I haven't had water in days. I'm like walking around listening to it for typos. And then I'm like redoing, oh, this word should go there. And then put it back where it was originally. And then by the time I get it press published, I'm like so scared. I do it. And then I'm like, oh, thank God. I just need to like lay down. And then I'm like, I had to post it on Instagram, and then I won't even do that for a while, because that feels like a Sisyphean pursuit of like, and I can't even bring myself to do that. And then I think you've probably seen this happen. It'll be like days later and I'll be like, all right, I think I can get off the couch and muster the energy to like promote the thing I spent 17 hours on, but like just make it. And then I think if I try hard enough, I can make the post that feels like, this is so not a big deal. I just like threw this out and put it together. Like
it's like that
maybe read it, but you don't have to.
Maximum effort to like seem effortless, like, okay, I'll do it in a way that doesn't feel. I think I've just been trying to like out myself. Like I will post the Substacks and like post a dumb photo of my face being like, I hate self-promotion. Like I just think the more because I get so much permission from other people who say like, fuck me, I'm so scared right now and I'm doing it anyway, that like I'm like, can I just out myself that this feels uncomfortable and I'm going to do it?
Yeah, I think it's just do it and not even say, because this is
Not
what
make it so precious.
Yes, and I think the thing with that I was starting to say about like our generation too, and I don't know if you feel this way, but somewhere along the line, because like Instagram at least, like we're native to, like we grew up with this stuff, and maybe because of that, as we've gotten older or just in
Yeah.
general, it's okay to say it or promote yourself if you do it like with a little wink or like a ironic
Totally.
thing, or like you're kind of
Totally.
making fun of it. Or that's at least how I got, where like I
Mhm.
realize now that like that's not cool to people younger than us. Like they just are like Marty Supreme, I'm the best in the world and I'm putting it out. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like that, and I think that's a way to that's actually the cool thing to do.
Right. Well, cuz there's two parts to it. There's the creative, there's the like, can I do the courageous thing of doing the thing I want to do?
Mhm.
Right? Like, and take myself seriously enough to do it.
Yeah.
And then there's the second part of like, and now I have to go get a bunch of people to care about it or read a bit or whatever, or engage with it in some way. And I'm so annoying. I'm so annoying. Like, I literally can't get through a conversation without talking about heated rivalry. Like, it's,
I love it.
no, it's actually becoming a real problem. But to the point of what you're saying, I was listening in an interview, and one of the actors, Connor Story, said this really interesting thing about art where someone was like, can you believe this is happening?
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't mean to sound cocky, but like a part, I'm gonna, butcher paraphrase, but like he's like, a part of me, like, I've been working so hard at this thing.
Yeah.
I sort of like, it would be insane if I didn't believe it was possible.
Right,
I've
right,
been
right.
working so
Yeah.
hard to like have this moment. He's like, but art, he's like, the minute we are doing it to try to get for other people or for other people's reaction to it, like you ruin the thing. So he's like, I go into everything hoping for the best, hoping that something like this might happen, but like fully prepared for the worst. Like,
Yeah.
can I show up and do my most honest work and
Yeah.
do my best job, assuming everyone who's read the book is going to hate it. Everyone's going to think my Russian accent sucks. Everyone's going to think this is like, it just falls on its face. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like, I actually, if I've embraced that that is probably the thing that's going to happen, almost like certain I'm okay, I fully accept that that is going to
Yeah.
happen, then I can just show up and do my best
Yeah. Yeah.
while still doing my best with the hopes that it's going to work out. And there's something about that, obviously, again, not a millennial, that I like keep thinking about when it
Mhm.
comes to creating. And I think also like we can think about when it comes to like marketing ourselves,
Yeah.
whatever that means, is like, what does it look like to do it if you almost assume it's like, bring on all the like, may I do this well enough that there is a Reddit thread about me thinking I'm an idiot, like, actually, can I show up so fully that like maybe it's inevitable that it's going to suck and
Yeah.
I'm going to still do everything in my power to try to have the things I want to happen.
It's so true. Things will happen to me and I'll be like, oh my God, I wanted this. I can't believe it happened. But like, if I really am honest, like you can, because you
Yeah.
did and you tried, or
Yeah.
even like it might have happened sooner or whatever. But like, you're right. There is something to that belief. I, I think something from the beginning of my, uh, starting the work that I do now was very much related to fuck it, let's go. Like
Yep.
putting it out there, and I didn't care what people thought. I was so ruthless about it. I really didn't care what my like the people I went to high school with and grew up with. I didn't care. Uh I just was like, I really believed in myself. Like, and now I feel like you with heated rivalry about Marty Supreme, which I like literally like not even, I don't have like a strong reaction to, but I think that it's a great example of marketing, and it's a great example of, in that movie, like things were actively like not working out for him, and he keeps going with this like gusto, and I I had that. Like, it wasn't like things were just like a even keel up. It was like a really steady, barely anything, like a little jump, very, very slow. And chipping away at it. But I was doing everything I could to like mindset it. Like self-help was like saving my life. And another thing I didn't mention, but I interned for this very famous self-help book author, motivational speaker, and she was someone who was just like, I'm putting it out there, let's go. And very good at that. And I was just, that really expanded me to at the time be like, oh, okay, I'll do that too. And yeah, she wrote the foreword to my book. I had the same publisher as her. So I had like, and she, yeah, I guess she just expanded me to sort of believe, like, I saw myself in her, and my career didn't like, I didn't even know if that was exactly what I wanted, but I think yeah, she is 10 years older than me. And I think I was able to, where I think now too is a little bit different. Like when you see someone doing what you want to be doing, if they're a decade older than you and you're in your 20s, you're kind of like, or at least this is how it was for me. I was like, oh, I'll get there too. Like that's what I'm going to do too. Like, cause it's going to happen. But now when you see someone who's doing what you're doing, even if they're a handful of years older than you, there are some things that I'm like, this thought happened to me, somewhat recently where I was just like, I'm like, oh, when I'm their age, like I'm probably gonna, I think I was like house sitting or something. And I was like, yeah, I'll probably have a family in a house like this too. And then I was like, oh, I think they're like my age. Like that's not gonna happen.
Right. Well, and look, there's also the like society, there's like the systemic things I think we can't ignore too, of like some of those social contracts of like, I'm going to work really hard and then become really successful have been like deeply broken over the course of the last like decade or two, right? Where it's like, oh, like someday I'll have that. I'm like, I don't know that we all believe that like we work hard and dreams come true.
Right. There's so much privilege to it.
Yeah. And also, sometimes you look at the thing, you're like, oh yeah, they're my age.
Yeah. And it's just interesting because I don't feel the age that I am in so many ways. And, my knees do, but it's, and I think too, it goes back to the marketing thing is what worked for so many people. Like we can't recreate, there's no formula, and I think we all want one. Like I wish I could say like, this is how I got my podcast to where it is, like just do these things and you'll get there too. It like, isn't possible to anyone. I wish I could do that with anyone. But I do think the marketing thing is directly related to this because it's like a different hat. Like going back to the play, it was like, I was the scrub woman in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying.
Obsessed.
In 10th grade. And it was, with that, I can say I was a success. I got some laughs, but it was not at all my job I didn't have to worry about filling the seats. Like you said, I just had to worry about,
going to rehearsal.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a different hat.
But you did invite your friends. You did ask your friends to buy tickets, did you not?
I probably played it off as like, they'll come because it's Everett goes to the play,
Yeah.
I think I probably did a little bit of what I'm doing now. I probably could have sold more tickets if I
asked.
Yeah, but I do think it's like, well, actually, maybe maybe we're getting somewhere with this. Maybe that is true. Where actually no, I don't actually think I did. I assumed that they would come because it is just, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. Where it's like that maybe was true with the play because they did. And I didn't
Field
have
of
to
Dreams
ask.
really lied to us. If you build it, they will not necessarily come.
Exactly. You have to put on a different hat, and because now it's like it's never been a meritocracy, but it's whoever's the best at marketing is what rises to the top, not what's the best quality thing.
Totally. And it's like a difficult. I mean, you see actors who don't have social media be like, I don't want my talent to be how many followers I have, and then you see other people. It's like, yeah, they're getting jobs because they have so many followers. Like we just live in this weird world where that is a hat you have to wear.
Yeah.
no matter what you're doing, or you don't. Like, I also think that can be its own context.
I
I
think
do think
that's
sometimes
changing.
you do just find a way. For me, I think it also comes back to at least the thing that is working has been the thing that has worked for me is like to get out of ego. Like, actually, this is not about me.
Mm.
And it goes back to having like a really realistic, right size sense of self. Like, it's not, oh, how do I market myself because this is for me and my own like self obsession. It's actually like, I'm creating something because I think it's what I wish I had that would help me,
Mm.
which I have spent enough time with other human beings to know I'm not that special, which means it might help other
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
I think, whether it's being a good writer, making other people feel safe, like all the skills you said, like people reflected to you that you have, that I've heard a little, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this might be something that can I be of service? Can I
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
get out of my own way and my own ego enough to be of service and like participate and be like a contributing member of society and
Yeah.
be like, here's my offering,
Yeah.
And certainly that requires me to get better at something. That requires me to like have a period of time where my taste level and my skills level
Yeah,
aren't
yeah.
aligned. It requires me to like be uncomfortable and market or like do any of the stuff we're talking about. But if I can decenter myself in it and make it more about it being a service to other human beings.
Yeah.
I know you keep talking about permission and like obviously
Yeah,
I
yeah,
believe in
yeah.
permission slip. That has been for me the thing that has allowed me to
Yeah.
like continue to do the uncomfy things.
Yeah.
Then when I'm like, how do I figure out how to do this thing better for me?
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. And I think I had that a lot at the beginning as well. And I think it just got a little bit muddied because it gave me so much. And I feel that way too about like being of service, helping someone, picking up the phone. Like I really like the biggest like way I try to orient my life is like when you're feeling helpless, help someone, that quote.
Yeah.
Like I really believe that, not in an altruistic way. It's totally selfish. It's completely selfish. It's like I know that's like the only way to get me out of my own head. But and and my work feels that way too, in the sense of, like I was saying, I get a bit grumpy. I know I'm not in a good place if I haven't like recorded an interview for a while, if
Yeah.
I'm not like researching something, if I'm not like working and
Yeah.
on that stuff. And I think, I think it's Brene Brown who says unused creativity is not benign. Like I think I need that.
Yep.
Like that is as embarrassing as it is. I think it's like this is the thing that I know how to do and have to offer. But it gets a little tricky because it has given me so much, the networking, the at
Yep.
a certain time money, uh, all of these things. And now I think I'm like going back a bit of like getting back to what it was originally, of like this is what I can offer and share, and it'll make me feel less alone to share it with people who understand, and it'll make me feel seen. It'll
Yep.
make me feel like more understood, and maybe by doing that, like you said, I know that I'm not that different. I'm not very special. Where none of us are. We
Yep.
have a lot more in common than we have different. And I think I think I kind of took it for granted too. Like it was so I'd had it for so long that um not that I never they say you get stunted at like an age when you've had some
Yeah.
success, but I think that the all of that happened very early for me, and I don't know if I could contain it or hold it,
Yeah.
but I knew it was precious, and I knew it was like kind of all I had,
Yeah.
and I was afraid to lose it. And now it's like I think what I am grieving, or like moving into the next whatever's next, is like knowing people's attention spans are 2 seconds, knowing that the body of work that I built or the experience that I have doesn't owe me anything. Like it being early doesn't mean it's so kind of you to bring it up, and it makes me feel so good to talk about and know that like and have it be acknowledged. It does really scratch an itch. It's filling my God-sized wound real nice. But like I have friends that I surround myself with, like I was saying, like Lily. But I think what I don't know if I finished this thought, but with last year, because I was talking, she was helping me figure out what's next. And to do that, we were talking about ideas, and then I'd be like, I tried that in 2018, and nope, that one I did in 2021, and it felt like I was just going back so much of like looking at what I did and why that didn't work and why that wouldn't work now, that it felt really depleting. And where I kind of got with it this year, and she was incredible, just like trying to help, and I was making it impossible.
Yeah.
But what I said to her this year is like, I'm done looking back, and I just need to like, don't talk about it, be about it. Like, I just need to like try new things, which is like, I'm trying something new on Thursday. And what I was really talking about with her was last year was my plan was to end Let It Out. And it felt like this, like, I felt like I was like holding this secret. And I was like, at the beginning of last year, I was going to like, take a month or two, and I was going to come out with it. And in my brain, I had this like idea for like a post about it. I'm like, oh, everyone's going to be, it's going to be so sad, but it's like, it's all, everyone's going to be like, let it out. And oh my God, and I was going to do a funeral for it. I had this whole thing. And then I'm like, and then months passed because I was like backing into it. And I was like, I'm going to bring back all the old guests, and I'm going to like, and I'm like, I don't have time to just do it normally. Why do I think I have time to like do this whole like retrospective thing? And then months passed. And then a friend of mine who started her podcast around the same time as mine, and who's wonderful, her and I like got on she was just like kind of worried about me, and she's so kind to like be like, oh, dude, what's going on? And she kind of said this thing. She's like, her and a bunch of like this group of friends of ours, she was kind of like, we're all kind of like, how is Katie still even doing that? Like, they've all kind of moved on. And then I realized, I was like, yeah, people's attention spans are 2 seconds. I could put all this work into like Let It Out ending, and like literally no one would notice or be like, didn't it already end?
These things we think are these big ideas and these big secrets of ours, and we do such a good job of like hiding from everyone. So I'm like, oh yeah, they're like, oh yeah, duh, we assumed you'd want to end that. It's like, it's actually just like not.
And I thought it was like about to drop a bomb.
We make these things these huge deals instead of just being, everyone's like, yeah, no, we know.
Yeah. So where I've landed on it too, and I don't even think I've told you this yet, is I am going to like try a bunch of different, I'm going to get up with the times. I'm going to get, I used to make the joke I have a face for podcasting, which like it makes me, bragging now, which as you know is my least favorite thing. So, but I'm going to get up to the times and do video, and I'm going to do different things, and I'm going to try to not restart, but I'm going to make different series, like the one I'm doing with Joe about rom-coms, and then the other one, which you named you gave me the theme song for it the other day, is like about comebacks, about people who like did one thing one way and maybe had some success in it.
Yep.
And now we're doing like a completely different thing over here. So that's the series I'm working on now, because
I feel like it's going to be a great like partner pod to Late to the Party. Come back.
Yeah.
Sometime,
I think so too. Yeah. I
it's
really
so
think
cool.
So too. Yeah. I think it's very related. And it's just, much like you said, it's like, going back to the beginning, I really am going back to the beginning of how I started this, which was humbly asking people for advice. I was just recording as much as I was saying like it was the new networking and I got to meet these people and hopefully become their friends. I often didn't become their friends, but I was able to like ask what I was genuinely curious about. Like that's all I do when I'm not like good at interviewing. I'm just present. Like I'm just like there, and I'm just like asking what I really want to know, and I'm familiar with the work. That's it. And I think that's and back then it was people about a decade older than me doing what I wanted to be doing, and as you know, as we say, like if you want what they want, do what they do, and that was what I was trying to discern and learn. And then now I'm doing the same thing. Some of the people might be younger than me or my age or a few years older than me or significantly older than me, whatever, but I'm like, you have what I want. You were doing one thing and then you started doing it a different way, or started doing it completely differently. So, yeah.
It's also so interesting. Like it's just so much easier to see it in another person than in ourselves, and I think that's such a gift of having these conversations
Yeah.
too, but I do think and listening to you, I can see it for myself also. But it's so funny because, like, yes, it's beginning again, but it's also not. It is also having, like, the depth and the breadth of the last 20 years of growing up and being a human under your belt, like, right, like, I'm doing different work, and also I carry everything I've done up
Yeah,
until
yeah,
this point
yeah.
with me. Like, yes, you might be being like, "I'm gonna start it again," and, like, try to bring that beginner energy to something, but you do have the expertise you have, and you do have that many hours of doing it
Thanks.
underneath you, and, like, you do have those relationships on, when we didn't even talk about dating, but, like, we do get to go into new relationships, and we do have the experiences we came before with us, and so,
Yeah.
like, I just I don't know that it really ever is starting over, I think is my, like, not that hot of a take.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like doing something different or trying something in a new way, but I do think we there's an arsenal and a toolbox that wasn't there before, and I think it's important to name that.
I hope so. Thank you. I mean, I think I had the for these they're such time capsules, all these interviews I have of what I was really contemplating. Like there's years where I would ask people, New York or LA, because it was like, and then there was like I was really addicted to asking, so, do you feel like a master of none? Like, what do you like a lot? Like, it was that for a while.
Yeah.
Like, there's always these like themes. And then there was like the year about the breakups was like, it was somebody about their book. And I'd be like, have you ever had a breakup? Like I just had like an inability to talk about anything else. Um, but I think lately it's, well, like, it's the comebacks thing, but most recently before that was I was addicted to the idea of like a phoenix rising from the ashes, of like,
Mhm.
oh, I thought that like I never had I'm like a high bottom person, I guess, we could call it. Like my bottoms have not from the outside, they've looked my when I'm at my worst, I've gotten more compliments on my appearance and on my um output when I've
Hmm.
been like mentally and physically like horrifically bad, And so it's just another like you never know what's going on with people and
Yeah.
also you it's it's tricky because again, like we're applauded for some things that like aren't we and we're not even maybe aware and I realize now that like I'm not gonna maybe have that like everything crashes and burns and I like lose everything and I'm
Yeah.
on the like it's just like a gentle lowering and it's more like this.
Yeah, and that idea that, like, it's gonna fall apart, then I'm gonna, like, this big fantastical story, it's like, no, I'm gonna, like, do a little bit every day,
Yeah,
you know?
it's really undramatic. Yeah.
It's why I, like, am so inspired when I see people, like, fulfill their dreams, is I'm like, it probably was not as dramatic as it seems on the outside. It was a lot of, like, waking up every day and just doing a little bit of something,
It is,
you
it
know?
is, and I think I don't know if you relate to this too, of like, I have the personality type that gray is really tricky to compute, so it's like,
100%.
I'm I'm an extremist, and so that's why I wanted to not just like start a little bit different of a podcast, instead I wanted to like tear it all down and have a funeral and make this like
Yeah.
and really I think the name and talking it out for a year with Lily what she really came to is she's like, somehow that name like still works. Let
It
it out.
does.
It's kind of an umbrella. And when I was making it into a magazine, the project, I went to it was too late it was out of scope to change at this point, but I wanted to make it a network. I wanted to make it a podcasting network. Like there's so many now, but that
Yeah.
was the plan. And especially because I was helping all these podcasts
Yeah.
begin and I knew a lot about the ad side of it. And and it's not that I'm doing that with it necessarily, although who knows, maybe someday, but I think let it out like speaks to that. If I did do that someday, because
Hmm.
I want to elevate. Well, I think what I've done in my career and what I want to get back to being able to do successfully is I've been able to know what I like and what's been useful for me and share that. And
Yep.
like a spiritual teacher that I love always said, your only job in life is to heal and then teach how you healed.
Yep.
And I think that I was really trying to like, this is what I've learned, and not just
Yeah.
about like concepts, like truly, and like this is where I found this shirt, you know, or
No,
where
anything.
yeah, and it's so fun to share. Like my friend Christine always says that she does like she would do makeup tutorials and stuff, and she always says that like beauty is the great equalizer of women. Like people get so excited to be like, actually use this or do the, and
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like there's
yeah.
so many things like that, whether it's books, like for me, it's anything, but anything I'm like you with this TV show or like anything I'm so excited to share about, whether it's a movie
I thought it was
or
like TV show, and then I was like, oh, right.
yep, yep,
Yep. Heated
the one.
rivalry. Correct.
Yeah. Like
Yes.
it's so fun when someone like you're gonna be so stoked when I watch it, you know?
Literally can't wait.
Yeah,
Can't wait to
and
talk to you about it.
and it's yeah, it's like that's the best feeling, and that's what the
Yeah.
podcast was. That's what my little wellness blog was like, and that's what I want to do with. It feels so good to elevate something that is small or like
Yep.
confuse your audience. And I had an audience to be able to do that for a lot of people when their book came out or when whatever. And
Yep.
I want to
Do that again.
that feels really good.
So that's sort of at the end of every episode, I ask
Yeah.
2 questions, and that's sort of answered one of them, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What party are you heading to?
Mm. That's so fun. I mean, I think it's that. I think it's like figuring like the best feeling in the world is what I was trying to describe it. And currently I'm working at a store and everything in there is on consignment, right? So this girl came in, she's super sweet, and she had just started making jewelry. And she brings in a couple pieces for consignment. And one of them she was just or all of them she was like, what do I charge, like and I was like, make it really high because I want to make sure you like are compensated
Yeah.
because they take 50% of the store, so
Yeah.
like and there's other jewelry in here that sells, so like I was
Yeah.
trying to like hype her up. She had just gotten started and she was like, okay, and she like priced it and then put it there and she's like, nobody's gonna buy this, and I was like, all right, like I believe in you, 'cause I
Yeah.
can see it, and then truly that she dropped that off at like 6 p.m. on a Saturday. The second I opened the door on Sunday morning, this never happens. Somebody was in there and was just like, I'd like to buy these earrings. No, didn't flinch at the price. And she was like, my client, I'm a stylist. My client's wearing them to the Golden Globes tonight.
Oh my gosh.
Who's the designer? And I'm texting her. I'm like, we need to make you an Instagram immediately. Like, but that was the best feeling. Like I was like in a really bummer place that morning. I was like, I have so much, and
Yeah.
it like, I was high from
Yeah.
that. Like I truly got, like it has nothing to do with me. Like I didn't make the earrings. I didn't do anything, but it did. And it was maybe just luck, but it made me so happy to see someone else that I like. Yeah, I did believe in her, before she did maybe. And someone who's so nice and someone who I loved their stuff, being able to show that to someone else, and whether it's in that way or whether it's on the podcast. And I think that's all I've ever really done is like humbly been like, this is a part of this movie I liked that stood out to me, or this is a part of this, like, not that I'm have the greatest taste in the world, but I like my taste and I like my, and that's something that like has only gotten better with getting older. And if I can just like the party I want to go to is like more of that, more of like taking all of these influences and all of these references and all of these people and like philosophies and wisdom and stories and being able to share that. And I think when I work with people one-on-one too, it's like always through my experience of like, you're struggling with that reminds me of this thing over here that this person told me. Like I'm good at seeing patterns and kind of like how can
Yeah.
we speed this up? Because like you said, it's much easier I'm garbage at doing this stuff for myself, which is why I have you and Lily and Maddie and Stella and like so many great people who can help us to see it in each other. And I think we all are kind of garbage at doing it for ourselves. But I think getting that momentum to continue is elevating other people and showing what you love to other people. There's no better feeling, right?
No, it's the best.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last question. You can pick any age. We're going to be so cliche here, but any age you could possibly be, whatever version of yourself, but pick a version of yourself, and what would you want to say to her?
Oh, man. Part of me wants to say like right now. Like,
I kind of love that.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious answer is to like the 2019, like at my grandpa's funeral, I was giving the eulogy, like crying in a way that was like disproportional to 100-year-old man's like death, like because of that breakup. And that person really just like was so like I was like a raw nerve, like I was just so like open in a way that I like admire actually in a way. But and I would say to her, like, it doesn't actually go away, like it doesn't actually go away. It's not I'm sad in the same way. I'm not like reeling about him. It's not that, but that was like the start of a grief that's like continued for me, I guess, of a real like you're on your own and it's going to go in a direction that like you really don't know, but and I still don't know, but on a good day, I can believe that if I continue and I like have the stamina and I like ask for my character defects to be removed and I like continue on, I'm gonna go to another party, because I think back then I was just like I was so afraid of never going to a party again. Yeah. And I now see a little bit that things are the benefit of age, as much as it's as a challenge, is that you have a bigger sample size in both directions of things working out and not, but you can see that it's cyclical. It's like the tides.
Yeah.
And last week when I felt really supported, and then like later last week I felt like really like alone and on an island, but I knew that like I'll probably feel the other way again too,
Totally.
Thank you. This is so great.
Oh, you're so good at this.
I mean,
you're
God,
a pro.
I love to freaking talk.
No, I'm really honored to have you here.
Thank you. So that was so, like I said, it was truly like so nice of you to see me so fully and ask such thoughtful questions. And yeah, I'll say what the person said to me: you were not to stop doing this.
Well, thanks, dude. I'm really grateful for all the permission you've given me, and it really is just like such a joy to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the party.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, it's Sophie. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Late to the Party. Truly getting to have these conversations and share them with you is such a gift. If something in today's episode resonated, I'd love if you followed the show, left a review, or sent it to a friend who might enjoy it too. That's genuinely how this little thing grows, and I'm so grateful you're here. New episodes drop every other Wednesday. You can find me on socials at @SoForGear, and you can follow the show at @LateToTheParty_pod. A huge thank you to the people who make this show possible. Nikki Stein, my brilliant editor, Nick Murphy, my cousin and honorary producer, branding by Lucy Anderson, also my cousin, photos by my dear friend Olivia Pierce, with creative direction by Annie Steele, who happens to be my sister-in-law. This is very much a family affair. I appreciate you being here more than you know. Until next time, you're not late, you're right on time.